It's three guys who combined to play 15 seasons in the National Football League trenches. Well, two guys. Ed Mackey, who didn't do shit. This is the O-Line Committee.
There we go. Professional podcast producer here, Phil Mackey. There we go. He's the Rhino, Alex Boone. I am Phil Mackey. Our guy Jeremiah in the wilderness.
Starlink.
With his dad. He did check in via Starlink for a few minutes on part one, the week 3 recap, but this is his annual go out in the wilderness and hunt and hang out with family. So you and I are taking it this week here. If you missed part 1, check it out. We went through all of our mics and a bunch of hot take questions, dumb football questions here, sir, for you. A bunch from the audience that we can sift through, but I have a couple from me to you, stuff that we didn't really get to on the part 1 recap. So are you ready for some dumb football questions?
Dude, Mackey, you're never ready. Let's go. Hit me.
Dude, I was
curveball.
Born ready, as they say. So, all right, for a couple of guys who spent some time in Seattle, you for like a couple months and me for like, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years.
Loved it.
You ended your career with the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, just like fall weather for 10 months out of the year. It's always crisp. The fans are loud.
It's great.
Water and trees everywhere. Here's my dumb football question to you. Mm-hmm. Are the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks the most underrated team in the NFL? Even at 3-0.
I worry about them a little bit. Just because obviously you go into a game like this, it's going to look really good, right? You go into a Miami game, but they don't have Tua. And Skyler didn't look anything like a viable quarterback should look. And honestly, there's a lot of pressure getting to Geno. And it's kind of like, all right, listen, I like what you're doing. This whole DK Metcalf thing, it's heating up. And he is a freak. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's
ridiculous.
From when I played with him, dude is awesome. So cool. So cool. Like, so
You played with him, and Geno was there too, right? When you were there?
I love Geno. Geno got me a Christmas present. And I was like, dude, you didn't have to do that. He's like, no, man, you're part of the O-line. I was like, I fucking love you, dude. Like,
wow.
They're just really good dudes. And that's why I'm excited to see them have success. Do I think they're underrated? I will say yes. Because I think that this connection with Geno and DK, and even that... I'm trying to think, is it not Doug Baldwin, but who's the other receiver out there?
Jackson Smith and Jigba, man.
And
got
Jigba's
12 passes
there.
2 weeks ago.
Like, not only that, but you have talking about Charbonnet in the backfield.
Tyler Lockett you're thinking of.
Tyler Lockett, sorry. I always get him and Doug Baldwin confused. But you talk about Charbonnet in the backfield being able to run the ball effectively. It's just going to be, as the season goes on, can you protect Geno Smith? Can you keep him standing upright? Can we stop with the interceptions? Can the defense really take over a game like this? Because I remember Seattle as a very fierce defense. The cover 3, the Legion of Boom. Like, they're starting to get that a little bit with McDonald out there, which is super exciting because he's a young coach. And at first I was like, man, this guy's going to be led to the wolves out there in the West.
He's like 37 years old, man.
Dude,
and he's a Harbaugh. He coached under mostly John, but he also spent a year as the Michigan defensive coordinator. So
I would love to know some of the stories that he knows, because I'm sure that he has 2 completely different people, because I've heard they're different. They're very different. I would love to hear more stories. But honestly, what the success that they're having out there is kind of fun to see, because San Francisco's kind of going through their thing. The Rams are kind of up and down. They don't have Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. Like, they're kind of like, what are we without them? But at the same time, Arizona was looking really, really good. They got punched in the mouth by the Lions. So it's like, hey, you're in a really tough division, and you're kind of leading this division. Do I think you're as good as you are? I'm going to have to say yes. I think I need to see you clean up this pressure on the quarterback. But at the same time, it's like, dude, whatever you're doing, it's working. Continue to do it.
I stand for the Seahawks, man. Like, so to answer my own question, I know they're 3-0, and so people are probably looking at them as maybe, are they like a fraudulent 3-0? I think they're being slept on. And you look at this division, you mentioned all the other teams, and I think the other 3 teams in this division are all super competitive and might all have a shot if there's some level of health for the Rams to be in the mix for a playoff spot. But the reality is, after 3 weeks, the Seahawks are 3-0. Everybody else is 1-2. And so the Seahawks have a head start on this thing. They have the number 1 defense in the NFL through 3 weeks in yards per play allowed. They're allowing 3.5 yards a play on the season. No one else is under 4. Like you mentioned, the weapons on offense, they go deep running back. I mean, Charbonnet comes in and he can catch passes. And then, yeah, I mean, Mike McDonald just brings some youthful. Now, Pete Carroll brought youthful energy for a guy in his 70s. I will give him credit for that.
See, I see them as different coaches. I see McDonald more as like a tougher coach, more like a defensive-minded. Pete Carroll was one of the most creative defensive guys in the world, and he wasn't afraid to be silly and goofy and have fun. But I don't see McDonald doing that. I see him being more straight-laced, more buttoned up, more like, hey, this is how we affect people. And they're doing a great job of getting pressure on quarterbacks. Like, they're showing up in sacks. Defensively, they are coming after people. And it wasn't like that for a while. Like, they were kind of struggling. They were like a bend but don't break. And now they're like, no, we are the pillar that stands and rises. And when you see Geno, like you said earlier in part one, when you talk about these quarterbacks that people have forever been like, just throw him to the wolves, and all of a sudden he's starting to have a resurgence. It's exciting to see because you're like, hey, we haven't given up hope on this guy. And when if you ever met Geno, you'd love him. He's like the nicest guy in the world, like super awesome. And that's why I love seeing him and DK go off on people.
Yeah, it's one of the Geno Smith, and I know that he's thrown some interceptions so far this year, whatever, but like the fact that he was written off entirely as a bust and a career backup, and he's been a multi-time Pro Bowler, and he has made a bunch of life-changing money now. I think he's just a fun guy to root for. And so I spent 2 years living in Seattle. I still covered like Minnesota sports and the Vikings, so I wasn't as immersed in Seattle sports, but people got behind Geno, man, in the 2 years that I was there. And it's a fun, supportive fan base. I think the thing that you would poke a hole in early with that 3-0 record is the opponent. So they've got wins over the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Dolphins. So really, the Dolphins without Tua, really favorable schedule early. They're going to have to get into the teeth of that division schedule at some point. But, dude, they don't have to give those 3 wins back.
Right.
Can you go find 6 or 7 more and get to the playoffs?
Dude, it's hard to win in the NFL. And not only that, but I've talked about it before too, the momentum that you can gain from wins is super exciting. And it's electrifying. And you're going to need it because when you go play the Niners and you go play the Rams, it's a different type of game. Like and I've played in all those games. When you're playing for the West, the NFC West, it's vicious. And now you have the Cardinals that are starting to look a little better, I'll say. Obviously, they were 2-0 at one point, but now
not incompetent. Incompetent.
Like, you're in a really tough division, and I think that's when the rubber's going to meet the road, right? And can you get by the West? Like, if you win the West, dude, I give you tons of credit because everybody in that division is extremely competitive right now. It's the same with the NFC North. Like, whoever wins that division is going to basically plant their flag at the top of the mountain and be like, I dare the rest of you to come after me. It's going to be exciting, dude. And really, like I said before, for a new coach, it's very hard to do that. And it's super exciting to see a young guy come in with fresh face and be like, hey, we're going to do things a little bit differently, but we're still going to win. And like people say, they're always trying to poke holes in your offense. A win's a win. You can't take that away from anybody. It's what does that win gain them, right? Like, what are they going to come out of it saying? Are they going to come out going, hey, listen, we did it again. Let's just keep putting our nose to the grindstone and keep doing what we're doing. Let's have some fun. Let's find the open windows when we can. But at the end of the day, let's just go out and play Seattle Seahawks football because, dude, those fans up there, they're some of the best, man. Like, I played in some serious games where it was like, I don't even want to be here anymore. I'd rather leave, get on a plane and fly home than have to play 2 more quarters with these people screaming as loud as they are. I swear they pump sound into that stadium. They have to.
I feel like if you were to take every atmosphere at its absolute peak when the team is playing well, the house is packed.
There's 4 places that stand out in my mind. 4.
Seattle's got to be one, right?
Seattle.
Kansas City always, because the home of the Chiefs will get you every time. You go down to NOLA, you get that place fired up. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get real scared real fast. You're like, hey, this place is rocking, right? Candlestick. Sorry, you guys can't ever play in the 4th, but when that place was rocking. The old Candlestick?
Dude,
we're not talking about Santa Clara.
No, I'm not talking about the wine and cheese people. I'm talking about the people down there on the coastline that it would be like snowing, and you're like, it's August. This doesn't make sense. And it was the old Mark Twain. They always said it. What was it? The coldest day I ever had was a summer night in San Francisco.
Yeah.
They'd always say that, and I'd be like, God, you guys are idiots. But it was true, man. And those 4 places, when they get going, you can't even stop the team. You could not.
When I was a little kid, little 8-9-year-old kid, and I've had family in San Francisco, Santa Rosa area, And I was going to my first, I think it was at the old Candlestick booth, because this would have been like mid-90s before they built the new baseball stadium, because the new baseball stadium, it's 25 years old now, was like maybe 99 or 2000. So it was the old Candlestick watching the Giants baseball game. And it's like early September, late August. And, I'm from the Midwest. It's August and September, shorts and a T-shirt, baby, maybe some sandals. And my loving Aunt Sandy says, Philip, you might want to wear a jacket. And I'm like, you West Coasters. It gets below 70 degrees here and you guys get all cold. No, legitimately. It is, as you know, living out there.
Freezing.
It's wild.
Freezing.
Okay, I have another dumb football question before we turn it over to the audience here. What do we do with the 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers and Justin Fields?
We go back to Mike Tomlin and go, how much more money do you want? Because... And, dude, we just talked about it. The Bears were basically like, can't do anything with them. No, it ended up being the Bears. It ended up being the coaching staff because week by week, and I'm not saying this dude's came out and just thrown the ball over the place, but you can see the progression that they have in trusting him and being like, hey, listen, let's keep it simple to start, and as we go week to week, we'll start opening up. This last week, dude, he went off. They were like, okay, now we're seeing the whole field. Let's have some fun. Let's get after it. And at the same time, defensively, like, I've played in Harbaugh's offense. I've played for Giro. You look at a lot of matchups and you start licking your chops. Like, these guys are built to rush the passer. This is our type of game. When you go into Heinz Field, you better be ready for the longest fist fight of your fucking life. And I'm not kidding you. I've played there. And no matter what people say, that defense is always fired up. I don't know what it is about them. They're feisty. They love to get after you. And if you show any signs of like, we can't hang, they are like, push harder, push deeper, make more blood show. Like, they are just Mike Tomlin ran. And that was the problem. You had a Chargers offense who was like, we're built for war, and a Steelers defense that was like, come and get some of this. And it's like, who's going to last? And when Justin Herbert leaves the game, all of a sudden you're looking at, once again, a whole new offense. And for years, I thought that they should have been more lenient with defensive players. And I've said this several times on several shows that, like, these roughing the passer calls are outrageous. And I agree with you guys. I think this is wrong. These dudes step on the same field that you did. But we're starting to see what happens when you don't have a starting quarterback out there.
Yeah.
You look really different. Really, really different. And I think people are starting to be like, this is not what we paid for. And that was one of the things.
It's a TV show. Like,
right.
These networks are paying for a highly rated TV show.
And the minute you put in number two,
a guy named Skyler is out there, it's like.
And I'm not trying to be a dick, but dude, there's a clear indication between the starter and the backup. And the minute Taylor Heineke went out there, it was like, this game has nothing left. Like, we're really hoping on the run game, but we're facing the worst defense to play this run game. And now we were hoping the play action in the pass game would show up. And it's like, that just ain't happening either. And honestly, I love what the Steelers are doing. Do I think it's sustainable? I don't know. How long can your defense hold for, right? Like, how long can they be strong? How long can they be tough? We say that they can do it the whole season, but eventually guys are going to get dinged up and banged up. And can this offense continue to churn butter? Can Justin Fields continue to grow? Now, I know one thing. Russell Wilson ain't coming out there anytime soon. So you're not making that switch till you have to, right? You absolutely cannot. Absolutely not. This dude is 3-0 in the NFL. And believe me, I've been on a 3-0 team that had no business being 3-0. But at some point, you have to turn around and be like, it's hard to win, guys. It's really hard to win. And when your offense is starting to catch a little bit of momentum and start the wheels turning, are we really going to shut it down and be like, oh, yeah, no, Russ was supposed to be the guy? No, we're not. We're absolutely not. We're going to roll the dice, and we're going to continue pushing this offense down the road.
Yeah, I think it's cool that this is a team that even me before the season, like, this will be the season where Mike Tomlin doesn't finish 500 for the first time in his career, right? Because 2007, I think, was the first year as head coach of the Steelers. Has never even had a slip up where they go like 6-10 or 6-11 with the new schedule. And you're looking this year like, oh man, you got this sort of washed up Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, man. There's no way this is in that tough division with those other three teams and here they sit, of course, classic. I know that there's a lot of fans in Pittsburgh that are just sort of, they feel like they've been spinning their tires for like 7 or 8 years because they haven't won a playoff game in so long. But man, to have this team 3-0 and to be winning games with Justin Fields, it's just another chapter in the Mike Tomlin book if they take this thing and ride it to like 10 or 11 wins in the playoffs. So I think I'm rooting for it, man. I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I'm rooting for Mike Tomlin.
I mean, how could you not? We talked at the beginning of the year, Mike Tomlin is one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL. I mean, the fact that he can get teams, like you said, for 20 years to play at a consistently high level. I mean, dude, you talk about a team that came in running the ball at will and you hold them to like, what was it, like 60 yards or something? Like, it's a mindset, dude. People don't understand that. Like, this team has come in and said, our identity is to punch you in the mouth. You're not going to stop us. And then Mike's like, oh, no. We've been doing this for 20 years. We stop everybody. Like, you ain't fucking coming in here. Dude, he's doing it with Cam Hayward. I played with Cam Hayward in college.
Yeah.
He's still getting sacks. Like, yeah, dude.
It's wild.
I love it.
Get
you some, man. Cam.
Here's a dumb question off of on the Chargers side. So they did the East Coast travel thing. So they went to, it was Carolina 2 weeks ago, I think. And then they stayed out east. Yeah, according to reports. And that was my question to you. It's a
Harbaugh thing.
It's a Harbaugh thing. What's that like when you pack it up for like 2 weeks and you just, instead of going back to the West Coast?
When we did it, we played the Jets, and then we had to play Cincinnati. And so we stayed in Youngstown, and it was so fun because I'm from Cleveland. And there was an ice cream spot across the street, and every day you could see the entire team standing outside this ice cream spot trying to get this homemade ice cream. It was kind of tough, though, because like you're at the mercy of like a Motel 8 in the middle of nowhere, and they're trying to keep everybody super like engaged, and you're like, dude, we're in the middle of nowhere, like, oh, what are we doing? And they're like, well, we just don't want to take you back and bring you back again. And it's like, so you just wanted to save money on gas. It sounds like I could have been at home. Like,
so it doesn't really, so it's, I don't know, does it work like body clock wise?
I don't know. I guess I never really thought about it. Like, when you're in the season, I never thought about, like, people would be like, this game is an early morning game. And you'd be like, all right, well, then I'll get up earlier than I need to. I'll go to bed earlier. Like, it's just, you never really think about, like, well, my body thinks it's 8 a.m. Like, I've been preached my entire life, anytime, any place, let's fucking go. Like, don't get me wrong. You can definitely feel like a fog and a grog when you're warming up at the stadium. But once the game is on, dude, the intensity level is super high. I don't know. It was cool, I guess. It was weird. I will say somebody found their wife in Cleveland, and I was proud of them for that.
Oh, wow. Like on
that trip.
On the layover?
Somebody ended up finding their wife, and I was very excited for them. Cleveland girls are the best.
That's nice.
That was great.
Maybe even though they lost, and even though Justin Herbert's in a walking boot, maybe somebody on that Chargers team found their somebody on this trip.
Where did Harbaugh keep him? Did they say where they kept him?
Let's see here. Let me Google this.
Was it Greenbrier? We're going to keep
Chargers
him in Greenbrier.
Stay east. Where are they staying? Or where were they staying?
I mean, Youngstown would have been perfect for Pittsburgh.
They stayed in Charlotte.
Did they?
So they played in Charlotte, and then they just stayed in Charlotte, and then I don't know where they practiced.
It just kind of sucks because your routine is like to go home every night, and you always kind of have a routine. And so when you're kind of taken out of your routine, that's the hardest thing to mentally get over. When you're like, I'm used to getting in the cold tub at the facility, and I'm used to eating with my friends at this table. And then I go home and I do this with the kids, and then I watch film, and you're just stuck in a hotel. Like, it's just a weird feeling of being like back in camp, and you're like, I just don't like this feeling. I don't know.
A couple from listeners here. Dumb football questions. You can always hit us up. Submit your dumb football questions in the O-Line Committee YouTube comment section. If you've ever wanted to ask an NFL offensive lineman something stupid or something smart, this is the place to send these questions.
Do it.
Mike Jenkins says, what's it like to be on a team that false starts a lot? What are the players saying when the number is called for someone that gets a false start? Do players ever get mad at other players if it becomes a problem?
Absolutely. Are you serious?
The Texans had 3 in a row against the Vikings.
It was bad. I mean, dude, you don't want to know what happens with the false start. Like one in the game maybe is okay. But if you get more than one, you are going to get cussed out so bad. Because the one thing that everybody says when they come to the line is check count. And check count means what's the snap count? And everyone's always like, and dude, for the most part, it's always on Monday. Like, everything is always Monday. And when it's weird because you're so used to listening to the play call that as the quarterback's spitting it out, you're trying to put the formation out there in your mind and you're starting to run the play and you're like, this is the defense I need to see. But then he'll check to this play and you're like, okay, this is the defense I need to see for that. And then alert to this and you're like, okay, well, this is the coverage for that. And then you get up there and you're like, shit, what did he say the snap count was? Like, it's just, but here's the thing. You're so used to hearing on one that you don't think anything different, right? So like every time I would ask, it was always on one. Every time I didn't ask, I knew it was on two because all of a sudden in my mind, they'd be, hey, on the DC, and you'd be like, oh, I heard DC. But like in the moment, you don't think that, right? You just panic because you're like, oh my God, check count. And they're like, dude, it's Monday, stupid. But if you jump off sides more than once, everybody out there is like, are you fucking stupid? Seriously, are you stupid? And then the coaches on the sideline are going to fucking ream you. And if you do it more than that, eventually the meeting on Monday is going to be vicious. Like, it's going to be like, we can't even fucking run on 2 snap count. What the fuck are we doing? Like, and then you're like, you're right. We've become the Pop Warner team. We can't even go on 2. Like I told you, my 13-year-old, they know when to go on 2. It's like, how could a grown-ass man not know the snap count? But there's so much going on in your mind.
It's a lot to think about. And you're
Dude,
also like,
is.
You're trying to figure out your matchup and where the guy is positioned and all the stuff that goes into.
Dude, the worst was I used to be the snapper. I'd be the guy that would give the snap count, and I'd always be like, check count. They'd be like, God, you're so stupid. I'd be like, dude, there's so much going on in my brain.
Just my head's spinning. Dude, my favorite one in that Vikings-Texans game. So Garrett Bradbury, the Vikings starting center, he must have he glitched a little bit. So he flinched a little bit, like, but it wasn't
he moved
enough.
the ball and fell back. It was clear.
But you saw, like, he was trying to make it seem like, oh, nothing happened, and but his weight starts to sink into his backside.
It's the worst.
And his toes come up, and he's falling over.
Dude, there's times where I've flinched, and I squeeze every muscle in my body to be like, nope, didn't do it, didn't do it. Snap the ball. Like, dude, it's so many times, and the coaches will be like, get you off sides. I'm like, yeah, that's why the block looked like shit, because I'm trying not to fall forward. So bad. You feel like such an idiot. God, I know. You're like, I'm a pro. What a fucking idiot.
This is going to be all over the
internet. It's a fine, too. You get fined in the O-line room for jumping off sides.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, dude, you do anything wrong in that room, you so much as laugh at the wrong joke, we're going to find the shit out of you. Why? Because we're bored. We probably just got cussed out. We're getting yelled at. And everybody knows what the fine's going to, right? Halloween, we're going to get candy for a bunch of kids and give it away. Thanksgiving, we're going to buy turkeys and give them away. Christmas, we're going to buy presents. So we're like we almost rob each other at times. We'll be like, hey, did that guy fall down? No. Hey, dude, let's just say he did. Ding. You fell down. Now you're going to pay us another $100. Like, dude, it's terrible. But it's fun because it keeps you engaged and you're like in the game at times. And I won't say that this is ever really. There's been a few times I may have been falling down that I was like, cannot pay another fine for falling down. So you're really thinking about the shit going on in the back of your head. Keeps the bar high.
You're more worried about the kangaroo court in the offensive line room than the actual 5-year penalty.
$1,000 like that on game day, especially if like you had 200 yards rushing. Coach like, game ball to all the old linemen. You're like, well, there's $500 coming out of my pocket. Thanks for the ball, coach. You're a real dickhead. Oh, by the way, special shout out to Booney. And you're like, fuck, there's another $500. I haven't even hit the old line room. I'm already $1,000 in. Wow. Terrible.
Cannon of Troy 47 YouTube comment section says, do refs ever talk shit? Do refs hold grudges? Do you believe that refs make makeup calls?
Yes.
Yes to all of those things?
No, they don't hold grudges. I will say the one thing is they never hold a grudge. They never hold a grudge. I know because you're talking to the one guy that may have told more refs off than anyone. Like at one time, Jay says this story a lot when we're talking to people about the refs. But when we were in Philly and I gave it to John Hussey on the field, I knew that I was going to get fined so much money. I knew it because as soon as he went for that flag, he looked at me like, oh, yeah? And then he went for the flag, and I was like, hey, you don't have a flag, do you, stupid? And he took his hat and threw it at me, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so bad. But I really didn't think I was holding anybody. And he called me for holding on the goal line. I was like, dude, it's a goal line. We're all falling down. Like, dude, come on. And so I was really in the moment. And honestly, a lot of it was probably because mentally I wasn't in the right place at that time during the year. Like we were going through a lot of shit. And I I exploded on John, and I felt really bad afterwards because I said some really mean things to him in front of a lot of people, and he deservedly threw that hat at me. But we saw him 3 weeks later in Jacksonville, and I remember all the coaches were like, "You got to apologize to him," and I was like, "Well, of course I'm going to apologize." And I remember going up to him before the game, and I was like, "John," he was like, "Don't ever say it, dude." He's like, "I get it." He's like, "In the moment, you didn't mean it." I was like, "Dude, we don't give a fuck. You think you're the only guy to tell me I'm a fucking idiot?" Like, and other things like. You Booney, we're good. And I was like, "Are you sure, dude? I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't mean to embarrass you like that." He was like, "You didn't embarrass me." I was like, "You embarrassed yourself." So did you get fined? I was like, "A lot of money." He's like, "You'll never do it again, will you?" I was like, "Never, ever." Now I did do it again, but it's because in
did
the
you do
heat
it to
moment,
him again?
No, I have a deep respect for him. Vinovich was great. Trying to think. Triplet was fucking funny.
What about the Hochulis? You came in when Ed was still in.
Ed was coming out, and true story, one time me and Darnell Dockett got into a fist fight on the 50-yard line. We hated each other, and we played each other like we hated each other, which I respected him so much more for that because he never once was like, "Are you okay?" He was always like, "I fucking hate you." And I was like, "I hate you too." Like, this is going to be a whole hate thing. So we start squaring up one time, and I had it on film, and it's on my phone somewhere. I'll send it to you. It was as the wide shot panned out, you could see us going at it. And I remember Hochuli got in between us and kind of grabbed us by the V of our necks and was like, "Hey!" And I remember I just was like, "Holy shit, it's Ed Hochuli." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "If you two fucking idiots don't stop, I'm going to throw you out of this fucking game." And I was like, "All right, I'm done." And I remember Dockett was like, "This shit ain't over." I was like, "Oh man, we're definitely getting thrown." But he was so cool. Like, he would let some things go, and then be like, "All right, now I'm reining you back in." Like, he wasn't quick to throw a flag. He was quick to come up to you and tell you were messing up though too. And I got quoted one time as saying something cool about him. And so he came up to me and was like, "I heard what you said about me." And I was like, "Please don't call me for holding anymore." And he started laughing. And he was a great dude. His son was great. I mean, most of the refs
Sean is like Ed has passed down the gift of jumping on the microphone to Sean Hochuli, man.
The way he gets on there like, "All right, listen, this is what we got. Holding this fat fuck." Like, they're both great at the dramatic pause. Like, they understand, hey, it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter.
Last night, I think, was it last night? Or no, it was, Sean Hochuli was on the Vikings-Texans game, and there was some key moment. Big play down the field, and there's a flag on the field, and Sean Hochuli gets up and he goes, "Holding offense." Like, he makes you pause, like, "Oh, is it offense or defense?"
What is it? Yeah, they're great at what they do. I'm trying to think, who's the ref? Is it Brad Allen that's just came out super jacked this year? Used to be super tiny, and now his arms are just massive. I used to talk to him a lot.
Yes.
He just, I think he did the Sunday night game last night. And he was like, "We got a holding," and you could see every vein in his arm, and he was like, "On the offense," and like every striation of his muscle, and he was like, "Second down." And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, we get it. What are you doing? They're funny though, man. They're really funny.
Ed Hochuli, by the way.
You know who was really cool too?
73 years old now.
Oh yeah, Jerome Boger was great. Romy Rome. We used to call him Romy Rome. Romy. He always did the St. Louis.
He had that
game.
Chiseled jawline too, dude, Jerome Boger, man.
He'd come at you too. He'd be like, "You put your hands in his face one more time." I'm like, "My bad, Rome. My bad, man." They're great guys. They have no malice. They really do. They just want you to talk to them respectfully. And if you come at them in sideways, and especially nowadays, it seems like they'll put you in your place quickly. And they're like, "Don't talk to me like that. I'm not stupid." Whereas in my day, you could probably get away with a little more yelling at them, like, "You're an idiot," and they'd be like, "Shut up." Okay.
It really is it takes a lot for them to throw a penalty flag for like yelling the wrong thing. In other sports, like Major League Baseball, if you blink at the if you look at the umpire in a disrespectful way, immediate ejection. In the NBA,
you'd
immediate technical.
Ejected. We'd all be ejected. That's not.
And
fair.
then you look at the NFL and you see some of these coaches just berating.
Did you see Mike McDaniels in the Seattle game? Just going nuts on the sideline.
He's been a little stressed out the last couple of weeks, I feel like.
I was like, "Oh, this dude is hot." Like, normally we just see him chilling with his cool little aviators, like, "Oh, okay, what's up here?" The hair is curly as shit. He's throwing F-bombs. I'm like, Happens to everybody. That's the worst, though, when your coaches get the refs pissed off, because then you're like, well, I can't stop this guy from calling this ref a moron, and he just did, and now the ref is really pissed, and that's when those flags are like, oh, yeah, I'm stupid. We'll see the next holding penalty how stupid I am, and you're like, just don't throw it on me. Don't throw it on me. Throw it on him. Throw it on him. I can't have my name called again. They'll cut me.
What about makeup calls? Do you think that's a thing? It's a thing in the NBA for sure.
I definitely think it's a thing. I think that they miss calls at times, and then later on you'll see a call and you're like, I don't know about that, buddy. The problem is the game is so bang bang, and at times they can fall on like, well, I didn't see it. I hate how they say that. Like, I didn't see it. What are you fucking looking at then? It's your area to look at. I didn't see it, Booney. As I go pick my helmet up off the ground. You sure you didn't put his hands in my face? You sure? Yeah. Okay. You know what? The buckles just unbuckled themselves, didn't they? And just crawled off my head.
Jumped off my head. Yeah,
I'm just a big idiot and pulled it off.
I got one more from Samp7166 here for you. How do players go about organizing an off-season training regimen? Is it on the player to find trainers and coaches to help him, like outside of the team infrastructure? Or does the team provide all of that infrastructure?
They provide it at the facility, but most guys don't want to stay there. They want to go home where they're from. So they'll go home and find a trainer that they train with. And it's kind of become more of a big thing. Obviously, the offseason has kind of become a little bit of a dead period, because when I was young, you could go hard as fuck and dudes would just try to kill each other in OTAs. And it was super fun, but a lot of guys got hurt. And that's why people were like, I just don't want to come anymore because I don't want to get hurt. I'd rather train. I'd rather get faster, bigger, stronger. So that's why a lot of these OTAs have gone way, way, way down. And they've become like this massive walkthrough to make sure we're good. But for the most part, there is very elite training facilities that are like strictly designated to training you in your particular craft. Like Brute, we do strictly offensive linemen. And we train everybody for everything. And a lot of it is because we've been at that level and we understand what the coaches want. We're still very in tune with all the coaches. We talk to them a lot. I'm constantly trying to pick their brains on what they're seeing and what they're thinking. I obviously leave them alone now because they're fucking massively busy. But like in the off season, we'll reach out and talk a lot. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Or how do you coaching this? Or what do you think about this? And a lot of it is kind of designed to hopefully turn into OTAs can go away and guys can just train for the whole season. And it can be what do you want to see out of this kid? What does he need to come back and get better at? I mean, that's the biggest thing that we're always trying to wonder is like, we watch their film, I watch their film throughout the year, and I'll go, these are the things I think that need to be fixed. What do you think? And for the most part, a lot of coaches are like, yeah, we agree, or maybe there's one or two things that you haven't seen that I think I want fixed. And it's like, okay, cool. So as we go through the offseason, a lot of is pushing the bar up constantly. Okay, last year you saw a lot of this. This year we expect to see a lot of this. Or, hey, you need to work on your independent punches. Let's just dial right into it. And it's picked up more because I think the money's picked up. And guys are starting to see that teams don't care. They'll just cut you for no reason. They'll be like, listen, you're just not good enough. I'm sorry. Like, we have a bar to set here. So guys are investing more into themselves. Whereas when I was in the league, a lot of guys just train at the facility. And a lot of that training, and I'm not saying this is bad or good, but a lot of that training is to maintain, right? Like, a team strength coach cannot push you to the max. Because if you get hurt, that's his ass, right?
Yeah.
I'm not an idiot. I knew how it was. Like, I would be in there like, dude, we need to go heavier. And they'd be like, we don't. You'd be like, but how am I going to get to, like, be really, really strong? And they'd be like, well, we're going to lift this a lot. And you'd be like, that's more tone. I want to be, like, big and bulky and scary. And they'd be like, wrong place, wrong time. Right? Like, they're constantly trying to push people. And, dude, guys get hurt all the time at the facility. And it's one of the biggest fears. So now guys have started to venture out to other facilities to be like, hey, I know you'll push me a little bit harder. I know you'll push me a little bit farther. It's just on the PA right now to kind of go around and be like, okay, listen, more guys are traveling out than are staying in. So we need to start protecting these guys that go out. And I think they're starting to look at that a little bit and be like, if there were some gyms that we could certify, where would they be and who goes to these gyms? Because that's what they're going to find the best off-season program is somewhere that's like, hey, my only job is to make you better, not the team. I'm not here to make the whole fucking team better. I'm here to make you better. This is what I see. This is how I think we should do it. And a lot of times strength coaches are kind of cool. They'll call us and be like, hey, listen, what are you doing with them? And we'll tell them. We're very open. And they're like, love it. Just push them. Like, got it. Cool. And we have yet to have a guy not pass his conditioning test. I mean, I'm not an idiot. We trained with LaCharles, and it was like, you ain't ever been through training like this. Like, he was one of the guys that was like, I'm going to push you more mentally than physically. But somehow every day we were outside pushing a semi. And it was like, are you sure about this? And you would walk away every day like, man, I'm fucked. I'm fucked up in the head. Like, he just had a great sense of how to like find that one thing to push on you and be like, I'm just going to keep pushing until you resist it and eventually develop a callus to it. And that's sometimes what I think coaches don't see in the league is they're like, hey, well, we look good. Let's just maintain this. And it's like, but there's a whole nother bar because the human body is insane. And when you start talking to doctors and people that are like, oh yeah, the recoverability rate right now is insane. And it's a lot of because of this and this and this. And you're like, wow.
Not to mention, crazy. Dude, like I would think in terms of individual motivation, when you're an offensive lineman and tackles started to make crazy money a few years back, like 15 years ago, you're seeing guards make $18, $20 million a year now. You're saying, wait, so shit, if I just outwork my peers between April and August, can I get a 2% edge that can lead to a big season going into free agency? I mean, I feel like there's more incentive to get specialized once you get to that level.
And absolutely.
There's an $80 million contract on the other end of it when there maybe wasn't 20 years ago. So,
and sometimes it's best to have somebody that's not in the room. And that's why I always liked having Chuck do my film, because he wasn't in the room with the coaches. So he was looking at it more from like from an Alex Boone perspective. These are your deficiencies. This is what I see you're weak at. This is where you're strong. If I were going to attack you, this is how I would attack you. And I would be like, God damn, he knows everything about me. But it's like, it's great because instantly I'm getting it from the coaches who are like, hey, as a team player, you're playing great. But then as an individual, it's like, hey, let's tweak this a little bit. Let's make it better so that the coaches can go, now you're playing really well. Like, that's what you want them saying constantly. And sometimes it's hard to see. Like, it's really weird to kind of describe, but like when you're watching yourself play at times, you don't see the tiny things until someone's like, hey, by the way, did you see that? And you're like, shit, I didn't. Oh yeah, I didn't even notice that. Like, oh yeah,
because like right. The team coaches might not even, hey, it's week 4 going into week 5, like they don't have time to drill down on the little tiny thing. It's more schematic. They've got big schematic things to worry about too, right?
And not only that, but I think at some point they're like, hey, you blocked your guy, you're fine. Let's talk more about this more important issue with the left guard who did this. And we only have a certain amount of time in the room. So that's why when I would get on the phone with Chuck, it was different. It was like, hey, I want you to pull this play up. I want you to watch it. I want you to tell me what you did wrong. Or we would watch it in the offseason and it would be like, this is the shit I'm talking about. And a lot of it too is like laziness. You don't see yourself being lazy because you're like, man, I'm fucking tired of shit. And the coach is like, I know you're tired. But then all of a sudden you have somebody on top of you like, how dare you say you're tired? What do you mean you're fucking tired? You're only out here for 1 day a week. What do you mean you're tired? Like, and that was what started to just rise the bar up. And a lot of guys are starting to see that outside voices can be like, dude, I did what you did. Don't fucking tell me that. Like, sometimes I think coaches are kind of hampered by that too. It's hard to sell someone to push on when you've never had to be told to push on. You know what I'm saying? Like, at times I've looked at coaches and been like, were you forced to do this? Were you? Because if you weren't, do you really know what I'm going through? But then when you'd have a former player, like when we had Hank Fraley in the room, it was great. Because I'd be like, Hank, he'd be like, I know. I already know, bud. But you got to do it. You got to push the fuck on. And you'd be like, Hank, I'm really beat up. And he'd be like, I don't care. And then you'd pull up some of his film and you'd be like, I can't imagine how fucking beat up you were too. Like, it's just the rite of passage, and having the ability to have done it, been yelled at by some of the coolest coaches, some of the meanest coaches. Like, it's just another level of being like, this is where the bar is always set, bud. And I will always see the bar lowered. And the minute it goes up, I'll let you know. But until then, I'm just going to continue to ride you guys. And there's a lot of guys that do that. And it's really, I think it's good for the guys. 2, I think it helps them see criticism, because a lot of times those coaches have to be your friend and they're like, hey buddy, I'm not yelling at you. Whereas you can get on the phone and be like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? We didn't do this all. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah. And it's the same thing with Chuck. He would be like, what the fuck is it? I'd be like, brain fart.
Well,
brain fart.
You're specifically like if it's your own guy in the off season, you're paying him to give you that feedback. Like it's all
that's his whole job, is tell me what, and you have to trust that person. And obviously it's one of the things I see this league doing is they're getting more former players to come back, which is awesome. I think it's great because those guys understand on a serious level what you're asking them to do. And it comes off a lot easier. Like having Mike Singletary and Jim Harbaugh as a coach, it's easy when they're like, shut up. You're like, I can't imagine how many times they were told to shut up. Like, I'm sure they didn't even tell him to shut up. They probably just smacked him across the face and told him, "Don't you dare!" Like
Dan Campbell. I mean, it's
right.
I mean, hell, dude. I mean, like my guy Kevin O'Connell, former Patriot, former Jet.
Been in the room, seen it, done it, been yelled at, knows what it's like. Like, you just cannot explain what it's like when someone like that yells at you, and you just understand in the moment. This guy's been there with me. He's clearly been yelled at this. I need to take this like a man. I need to eat it. I need to accept it, move on, as opposed to a guy that's never done it. And I'm not going to say I haven't had that, but there has been times that guys haven't done it, yelled at me, and it's like in one ear and out the other. And you're like, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. I can't even feel my
even
face
if what they're saying might be right, if they lack that credibility and background.
Absolutely. Especially when they come at you from a very disrespectful way. Like when people call you soft, you're like, the fuck you just say to me? Soft? Dude,
so if there's any Dallas Cowboys listening to part one of this recap, hearing old Macadac calling them soft, they might.
Dude, I remember that. I was like, did he just call me? I ran in here and got my shoulder numbed up and didn't miss one snap. Did you just call me fucking soft? Well, maybe not you.
SAWFT, soft.
Soft.
Keep sending in your dumb football questions too.
We love them. I don't think there's been a dumb question yet. Like, honestly, I've heard dumber questions in the room. Like, dumber questions that I was like, that can't be a real question. Did he really just ask that? The coach would look at him like, do you want me to answer that?
I want to challenge our audience. So you guys send great one, and we've got a backlog here of more, but like, I'm challenging the audience.
Is there any stupid questions in there? Give me one.
The dumbest. A lot of these are like pretty. I think the problem is we have a smart audience, and they're trying to ask smart, probing questions. Give us some dumb ass, like just the dumbest questions you can think of, and we'll add them to this list. So, part one is on the podcast feed. If you missed it from week 3 here, our mics and some "Is this a hot take?" questions, and yeah. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here. Week 3 was wild in the National Football League.
Sure was.
He's the Rhino.
Hey,
Alex
find
Boone.
Jay again. You got to find him again. He missed this whole.
He wasn't even late for this one. He was just
not got to work here anymore.
Not even connected to the cell signal for this episode.
Hope you're great at splitting firewood, buddy. Welcome to your next
be on
career.
the lookout for some film breakdown, and then we make our weekly picks too over on the O-Line Committee Instagram account, so you can check that out. For the Rhino, I'm Macadac.